Welcome back to another episode of Anchor Lines. Guys, we had an awesome conversation this week with Gage Staats. Gage is, well, coincidentally, he's my roommate. He just got back from a trip on the Coral Reef 2, where he is the head engineer and the first mate aboard the vessel. Now, the Coral Reef 2 has been in dry dock for a little bit longer than usual due to some issues they've had. When they got out on their trip, which they are a research vessel for Shed Aquarium, they head out to the dry Tortugas and experience a couple different mechanical issues. He gives us a great conversation, story, whatever you want to call it, of just talking through kind of the problems they had, what he learned from all these situations, how he's going to be better prepared for their next trips. And just a lot about dealing with problems at sea. If anybody's been out on a vessel, they understand that, if you got a boat, expect to keep putting a couple more dollars into it because you're going to have problems. He just had a lot at once. So they managed to handle it, get back home safe, and they're ready for the next one. In the conversation with us as well, sitting in is Chrissy, who is the dive safety officer aboard the Coral Reef 2, at least for this trip. She does a couple trips per season. And then Luke, who is a local captain and dive instructor here in the Florida Keys, good friend of ours. We just asked him to sit in because, well, you always love a little laugh from Luke. All right, well, y'all enjoy this conversation, and I will catch you on the next one.
Buddy, I wanted to take a shower. Sue me.
It rained. It was nice and refreshing.
Yes, my tuchus was wet for the ride home.
Yeah. Oh, did it rain in the Jeep?
The interval of when we were in Publix to back it, it got soaked. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you can hear the thunder rolling in, too.
Yeah.
That's that Florida summer showers.
One of the weird things that happened last week is apparently it rained here like every day.
Yes.
And it was crystal clear, like flat calm of the Tortugas
What?
for 2 weeks. Like there was nothing. Literally, it was like glass.
Yeah.
All our mornings were glass. All our afternoons were thunderstorms.
Yeah. It
100%.
It was complete glass for 2 weeks. We had one little iffy bit for I think last Saturday, where the storms were rolling in because we had the one that was coming in that dipped underneath Jamaica that was kind of worrisome. Mm-hmm. But it was complete glass, crystal clear, and on the last couple days, it was beautiful visibility. Like, the anchor's going 250 feet that way.
Well, that made your job easier.
Oh, for sure.
But nothing else was made easier.
Oh, no by no means. That was the nice start. That was the Tom made a good analogy of those are the days those are the reasons you become a mariner, of just crystal clear, crystal. Just conditions, absolutely perfect.
Sure, appreciate them when you get them.
Yeah, no light pollution at night, stars for days.
Mm-hmm. Heck yeah.
And just out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, Gage, why don't you explain what you and Chrissy were doing the last, 14 days?
So over the last couple of weeks, Chrissy and I we were up and down the Keys. But the main portion of the trip was in the dry Tortugas, right around Fort Zachary, which is west of Key West, 63 nautical miles from Key West, actually. We were doing coral research on, truth be told, that's not my strong suit of exactly what we were doing. But it was by far extremely fascinating and being really neat to be at the forefront of literally watching things changing, people gathering information and being able to take stuff back. We were traveling, to give context, we have the Coral Reef 2, which I'm the first mate on, and the chief engineer. It is a 90-foot vessel at 99 tons. And she's a big girl, 26 feet in berth, and a 7-foot draft. So, which is kind of nice because I can get in and out of places without being too worrisome. And what we do is we'll take the houseboat, the research vessel, the Coral Reef 2. She's always chained. She's usually chained with at least 2 tenders up on the top rack, and sometimes 3 or 4 that we put on the aft deck, and we have davits that take out, and we spread researchers around for whatever necessary need case that they need. But we were down in the dry Tortugas, and we were trailering 2 skiffs. We had 2 skiffs in the water at all times. So whenever research was going on, generally we had 2 teams going out, doing what they needed to do and research and gathering information. And there were some times where there were use cases in which there was a 3rd team diving distinctly off the boat, if that makes sense. It was 14 days, 16 days, somewhere around there. It was Thursday to Thursday, so 14 days.
Well, counting our mini vacay in Key West, if you want to.
We had a mini vacation in Key West on Father's Day. It was
We'll
a great
ask
time.
about that later.
That's a whole nother episode.
Mini vacation. Yeah, taking people throughout Key West as a tour guide was quite interesting to people who have never been, and especially on Father's Day. It was a very unique environment of people in Key West.
Well, we'll wrap that up for the majority, but I do want you to drop your little tip about the butterfly house you told me earlier today.
Okay, so if you're ever in Key West, little fun fact is, so if you're on Duval, which is like the main street through downtown going from north to south, and the Butterfly Museum is near the southernmost point of Key West. If you ever need a good time or need to sober up real quick in Key West, the Butterfly House is pumped with O2 to help supply a healthy humidity and environment for the butterflies and the rest of the animals that live in there. So pretty much you find yourself, there's 3 turns that go through the butterfly exhibit. You go down, literally just serpentine your way, and on the back of it, I almost guarantee you're sober because you were just completely cleaned out with 100% O2 and having a great time. Just looking at butterflies and just them landing on you and seeing turtles and flamingos and
quails.
and little
The
adorable
cutest of
quails that just sit there. We saw 4 brand new born quails
Little
because at the
babies.
very end of the Butterfly Museum, they have a huge glass case where you could see from the whole entire process of the butterflies being born from just little caterpillars all the way up to a chrysalis, and literally every single time I've been there, there's always one literally opening its way up and being born in the
so
world.
cool.
Yeah. Also, did you know that when butterflies are being made, they actually go full blown liquid, and they're a liquid in the chrysalis.
Dude, I gotta be honest, most of what I know about butterflies comes from Pokemon and how Caterpie turns into Butterfree, alright? Kakuna's a real asshole, so I don't like that period of their life. But that's all I got growing up in the early 90s.
I recently learned that butterflies go through the 3 states of matter in a chrysalis.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
You needed more inspiration in that story. There it is.
Yeah, I was like, this is fascinating. So you see the whole entire process in them being born, and in the corner of the case were 4 brand new born quails just staring at you and just shaking the entire time, and they were all cuddled up for warmth. But it was adorable, by all means.
Well, shoot. Alright, Key West sounds like a great time.
It's always an interesting time.
So, once you left Key West, though, how'd the seas fare?
Honestly, they were 1 to 2 foot chop at most. Pretty much
Just
no
being
surf.
a little bit more metaphorical,
Oh.
since I did help with some of the situation after you left Key West.
Okay.
I have some
We're
insider
not
information
there.
before this
We're not
conversation.
there yet, but I'm imagining a logical aspect of once we leave. So the reason we were in Key
Give them a
West,
little time.
yeah, the reason we were in
Give 'em
Key
a hard
West
time.
is we had water pump issues where the water pump failed. We recently had work done on the boat. It was the longest dry dock season that I've ever been a part of, or truth be told, heard from partnering mariners in the sense of not just it's their own boat and then it gets done over time. We were stuck on dry dock for 3.5 months due to having a lot of the hull cut out and the aluminum plating being replaced. And what happened is when we got the water tank professionally cleaned, bits and pieces of aluminum from it being worked on were still in the unit, and what happened is it traveled down the water pipes and clogged the filters, and it was starting to burn up the motors. And what happened is I didn't find that out until 9 hours later in the engine room. I lost 15 pounds in water weight in 24 hours of just being down there. This is a good time. But found out after going through all the plumbing and knowing and getting the know-how of how all the system works is there's a small little portion, there's a pre-filter before it goes to everything else, and then an entire pre-filter was just blocked with aluminum. So once I dumped it and I cleaned it out, it turned over perfectly fine, but there was an interval of 36 hours where we were trying to get Headhunter, which was the company that installed it, down to go through the system because I was not really sure what was going wrong, and as much as I love to solve the puzzle, I didn't want to put hands on something I really wasn't trying to touch because there was a portion of the work was warranted and all that fun stuff. But
I mean, half the job of being a head engineer is also knowing when you need to call in the right people to make sure it doesn't get worse.
Because especially after, so what happened is that Saturday, we had issues at like 3:00 in the afternoon on Saturday, and I was in the engine room almost like past midnight, 1:00 in the morning, and we had to make the call to go into the Perry Marina in Key West because we didn't have any working bathrooms. We didn't have any working, like the dishwasher wasn't working, no faucets were working, like nothing was working. So like it was a problem in the accent of like technically we didn't have any fresh water. We had plenty of La Croix for people to go around. That people were just drinking that the entire time.
At one point, we had talked about possibly showering in LaCroix and how luxurious that could have been.
Oh, just the bubblies.
Which flavor would you pick?
Ooh, I think I might go pamplemousse.
Pamplemousse? I would go beach plum. That's the only one I like.
Or lemon. Lemon feels
I was going to say
refreshing.
the green can. Is that the lemon?
That's lime.
Lime. I don't recommend the cherry blossom. By
No,
any means.
God.
I'm bad with my colors. But I don't remember all these names when y'all are throwing out the actual flavor name.
Pamplemousse.
Oh, just hand me a
Beach plum.
purple can.
Why are we
Hand
going
me a
hot
yellow.
Italian over here? It just happens.
Yep, can't help
But
it.
it just happens. But we had issues, and what originally like the standpoint at the time is I called a buddy who helped put in the system and everything else like that, and I was having issues, and I found we were having issues past of me finding the aluminum flakes in the filter because the pressure still wasn't being able to build, like air was coming in the system, and we were trying to theorize what was issues. There was a possibility, since there was work done on the tank, like maybe something got stuck in the intake of the tank itself, and that requires me to literally open up the seal, like the whole gasket, taking out all of the whole top platform and crawling in there, and then that sabotages all the fresh water and all that stuff and going through that process. Luckily, we didn't have to do any of that, because I found out when I took out the filter, the pre-filter that goes into the pumps, that I put the filter in wrong. And there was a little piece of a plastic that is supposed to go in a very specific manner, and I put it in the wrong spot, so it wasn't able to create a proper suction for it to work fluently in that aspect, and that was the source of the problem, on top of the aluminum flakes. Now, throughout this trip, we had to have multiple times, pretty much every other day, I would go down and I would break that filter, and it would still be chock full of aluminum flakes, and I would just clean it out, put it back in, make sure the prime was still there, and the water pump, but it worked great. And that was just the start of the issues from the trip. After that, about 24 hours later, we were in the Dry Tortugas, and we were on anchor. My captain and I, we went to bed, and during while we were sleeping, we have people on rotation from night watch, and around 11:30 at night, Chrissy wakes us up and saying that the generator is overheating. For our John Deere generators, normal operating temperature is from like 180 to like 193.
What'd you see, Chrissy?
233.
So she wakes me up.
She was ready for that.
Dot
233.
Well, I stared at it for probably like 10 seconds, like, no way.
This
I'm
isn't
just
real.
tired. And I was like, no, that is actually real. I should go wake them up.
So she comes and wakes me up. I'm not the best person when you wake me up. I'm pretty aggressive. I don't
You
understand.
had literally just told me not even like 30 minutes before you went to bed that you're like, I'm so aggressive and like, I hate when people wake me up. And I was like, shit, I have to go up there and wake him up after he just told me this.
So she comes up, wakes me up. The captain, Tom, and myself, we go down. And at the time, we just thought that the impeller burnt up, which is, truth be told, it happens all the time. You just got the crappy impeller, things happen. And lucky enough for us, we just had the whole raw water manifold for the John Deere at the ready. So what we did is we literally just turned it off, closed off the sea chest, which the sea chest is what allows raw water to come in on a quarter turn valve that goes up through a strainer and all that fun stuff. And what we just did is we had just undid hose clamps, and we just took the entire unit out and replaced it with a brand new one. Like, bar none, okay, this is got to be fixed. The thing is, so we have two generators on board, and it was the port side that was the issue. So all we did is we turned that one, we switched the other one on, got it up and running, make sure everything was fine, and we turned the port side one off. that was the issue. And we didn't run it back up. We were like, put in a new impeller. We're going to call it a night's sleep. I'm not coherent right now. It's like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning at this time. We'll deal with this in the morning. So Tom and I get up in the morning at like 6:30. We have to move the vessel to get to our next site. And we get there, we anchor up, we're going through our anchoring procedure, and he hollers at me over the PA that our port side engine is overheating, and he turns it off. So it's a mess. We were just having issues after issues after issues. And truth be told, I contribute these issues with the boat being down for so long. Boats don't do well if they don't run. Issues start to persist when nothing works. It's generally not good for anything mechanical in that aspect that works on a heavy load to just sit and wait idly by for it to work. It needs to be consistent throughout its time, and that's how all this stuff works. And I think a lot of these issues, especially on this first major trip for the aquarium, it was just working out problems, and because we were at dry dock and we were not in the water, not operating fully for such a long time. So we get down there the next morning, and we are looking over everything, and I see shredded belt and like melted plastic over to the side. So I'm just sitting there, I'm like, oh.
That's what you want to see?
Oh, yeah, I love it, and just especially still waking up, nice glass of cold brew in the morning, had a nice little hot breakfast, and just sitting there and just like, today's not going to be the best day. Today's not going to be the best day. So what I do is I take off the shroud that covers the belts, and because that's where I see it from the aspect of where the belt lays and everything. I take off the shroud, and I find that I always call them like dummy pulleys. It just sits there in the sense to keep tension on the belt that allows for the alternator, the main crankcase, and whatever else is in line for the engine to work on the belt system to keep tension and the belt tension and all that fun stuff. The dummy pulley the bearing was completely gone. It was shredded. It was destroyed, and there was no way to get that up and running properly to fix that. So we sidelined that problem because at this moment I have our other generator working, and if that generator starts having issues, I can just take that pulley off of it and put it on the other one, because statistically possible, there's no way that the other one's going to blow itself. It's like it would be nearly impossible for that pulley to blow. So if we ever need to switch over, I was like, okay, we'll just sideline this problem. And we moved on to the port side generator, the port side main engine, our old Detroits that are as old as the vessel. She's 39 years old, turning 40 this year. Never been repowered in the whole 9 yards. She's a wonderful woman of a boat.
Would you attribute that why it was such a long dry dock season, though?
Yes. So we had a lot of issues, and we've had what are the things that have happened in the time of the vessel? Seems to be a lot of Band-Aids, truth be told. And I get it from all aspects and stuff like that. But I have been purposely going through and fixing Band-Aids and getting things done right. Because truth be told, when you're out at sea for weeks on end, you don't want to have the what-ifs going through your brain.
It's not duct tape and chewing gum. It's
exactly
new fabricated parts.
Because when you want to sleep, you need to sleep. You don't want to have what-ifs. You don't want to be looking for something. You don't want to be hearing for something to go wrong. You don't want to be like, an issue persists. I know exactly what happened because I know how it got fixed.
What I'm hearing is he doesn't want you to knock on the door anymore, Chris.
Yeah, you're not allowed in the wheelhouse anymore.
He doesn't have to listen to you in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I don't want. You're not allowed in the wheelhouse anymore. So we had issues with the raw water intake, and I just replaced the impellers before main season happened. I went through and did general pre-maintenance, because the best maintenance is precautionary maintenance, going through, dotting I's and crossing T's, because it allows you to put eyes and hands on possibly issues that are going to happen always in the worst times possible. It's never in like, oh, sweet, this happened at the best time possible. It's always when you need it the most, it crashes and it burns, in that case. And so we had issues, and what we did is we deemed that we just need to replace the entire raw water intake and export of the Detroits. And then it turned into a Hail Mary problem because we're out in the middle of nowhere. We don't have Starlink or any use of internet or anything else like that. We have no service, and service is 4 hours away. So there's no way for me to Google anything. The information that I have is all by manuals and hoping that I could find them, and they were stored in the proper ways. It's not a quick Google search. It's trying to figure it out, part numbers and all that fun stuff.
The good old days.
Exactly. Yeah, the good old days. Just learning the basics and the bread and butters.
Yes.
So I'm there going through stuff, and we do have a satellite phone, and we're trying to go through Hail Marys. And this is actually a fun little thing because on top of calling Reba to get in contact with you, I called you and I left you a voicemail. And I don't think I've talked to you about that yet.
The truth comes out.
Yeah.
One moment, please.
Please check. I did not get one, but I blocked his number because I thought East China was calling me 8 times in a row. Because there's a +87.
I'd like the jury to know there are no voicemails from the Gator Man.
Well, it wouldn't have come from my phone number. It would have come from a sat phone number.
Oh, would that be the?
It would have started with +87.
It had to be something
from
weird.
621.
Yeah, click it.
Well, this is my life after
No.
this.
Oh, we'll mute it if it's bad.
Yeah. No, it would have been.
Yeah, it still starts with "Hey, babe."
It does start with A.
Oh yeah.
That's Gage for sure.
Gage. Let's see what we got.
All right,
here.
everybody quiet. Too quiet.
One moment. Life proof.
Life-proof case.
The joys. Waterproof, but nothing ever goes in or goes out.
Next time I'll have the cord set up so we can plug a phone in immediately because I have that ability.
I'm calling from the sat phone. I'm going to try to call you immediately.
Oh wait, this is you.
Yeah, this is 100%
This is 100% me.
This
All right,
is the
let's
first time
listen.
I've listened to this.
I know how important I am now.
Hey,
Hey, babe. Hey, it's Gage. I'm calling from the sat phone. I'm going to try to call you immediately back. Do not call back this number because it's stupid expensive. So I'm trying to get a hold of Tyler. If you can get this voicemail and after I hang up, can you please call Tyler because I'm trying to get a hold of him. I'm kind of in a tell Tyler to pick up, please and thank you. Thanks for the bye.
I didn't know I caused so many problems by muting you.
Okay, I know how to feel ignored.
and when I
So
get
desperate.
unknown phone calls, maybe
You don't
I'll
even answer.
listen.
Don't even listen to the voicemails.
No,
You don't even listen to the voicemails.
no, dude, it's unknown. It's probably a marketing.
I was in a kind of a bits of trying to find a way. So we're in a point where we're in the middle of nowhere, and what we're trying to do at the time is there is a local ferry called the Yankee Freedom that goes from Key West to the Dry Tortugas. It goes there and back every day. It shows up. It leaves from Key West around 8, gets to the Fort Jefferson around 10:30, and it leaves Fort Jefferson around 3:30. And it's a pretty regular thing where they will, if they can, bring parts down for issues that happen. Because obviously, that boat flies. It is a huge ferry that goes 28 knots normally. It cruises. No issues at all.
Jeez.
My boat goes 10 knots on a good day. And, so they just fly. When there is, so we called up the fellow captain who was on the Yankee Freedom and asked for a favor, and they say no problem. It's kind of one of those weird like mariner oaths. You always help out each other no matter what, if you can. So we called them if there was an opportunity. We're going to make some phone calls to see if we can get parts delivered to Key West and for them to deliver them to us. And they said no issue at all. Talk to so and so at the we'll talk to so and so at the desk. Later found out they never talked to so and so, and I'll digress with that later. But so I ended up having to. I called Tyler probably 43 different times, leaving multiple voicemails.
So I got
with no answer.
I got
back.
3 calls in a row from a +87 area code, which I was very confused.
Sure, what's
I
that?
I didn't know what that was. I answer. I go, hello? 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 And I just hang up. Cool. So Josh goes, let me look this up. And he's like, it looks like it's coming from East China. I was like, well, block this number. And I blocked it. Straight up blocked the number, put my phone down, and I continued on with my day.
So one of the things with sat phones is it's not a general normal connection where you talk in and they can hear you. You can literally have a conversation.
It takes about a minute and a half to even hear the first thing from him.
So what will happen is you'll call, and I was like, please don't hang up, please don't hang up, please don't hang up, please don't hang up, please don't hang up. And you'll hear a beep, and that's when you know the phone call has been initiated. And you're like, please don't hang up, please don't hang up. And in that time, and when you're saying that, there is a delay, which is 5 to 10 seconds. So they hear that, and they're like, oh, okay, what's going on? And I'm like, and you have to be clear, my name's Gage. I'm the first mate, and I'm the relief officer, the relief captain of the Coral Reef 2. I'm calling you because I'm having an issue, and that's how sat phones work. And what ended up happening is I started just going through my phone contacts of people to call Tyler because Luke doesn't love me and won't answer the phone call.
But Reba patiently waited for some reason.
Oh, what a good friend.
I know, what a great friend. And so I call our friend Reba, and she...
Not McIntyre.
Yeah, not Reba McIntyre. That'd be awesome.
But she's coming for pizza night.
Yeah, coming for pizza
Which is why I'm here.
Yeah, no other reason.
To get people to record with me, we have to offer food afterwards.
I'm here for the Italian aspect of the day. Very hard Italian over here. So I called my friend Reba. It happened. I called her twice because generally they're not going to answer on the first one because they're just seeing this unknown number. Granted, that was a fault in my aspect, but I didn't know what the sat phone number was to be able to give out to my emergency contacts.
And if I may, in my defense and Tyler's first defense, our phones block calls we don't know.
Exactly.
So I never even saw that.
Yeah.
Well, I have it saved.
You got a voicemail you refuse to listen to.
Me deciding not to listen to the voicemail. Well, that's on me.
Yeah.
Well, Gage can now hand that number around. I have it saved as a Coral Reef 2 in my phone.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And I have it now where you know where that phone number is, and because you are one of my emergency contacts, you're one of my emergency contacts, and Reba's one of my emergency contacts.
Nice.
In case I go lost at sea, you guys have full reign of all my belongings.
We're getting you an inReach.
Yeah. We're actually getting Starlink because of the problems that this trip has had.
All right, well, continue, though.
So I call Reba. After the first time, she doesn't answer, of course, because it's a weird number. I immediately call back. And she stays online, and you hear, like I was talking about, you heard that beep. And I'm screaming in the phone of, please don't hang up, please don't hang up, please don't hang up. And she responds, hello? And I was like, Reba. She's like, who is this? I was like, it's Gage. And she's like, what are you doing?
Hi, friend.
And, hi, what's going on? I love you. And I was like, I love you too, but I need you to listen, please. I need you to pay attention. We're going to take a step back and listen, because it's not a conversation like I was dictating. It's there's I talk, you listen, and then you talk. It's a very different dynamic than normal cell phone calls. And I was like, can you hear me? And 5 seconds later, she's like, yes. I was like, okay, I'm going to be methodical. I'm going to be clear-cut. Take notes if you need to. And this is where it digressed, and you can talk more on how Tom talked to you.
Oh, God.
Because it's very direct.
I felt like I was in the military for a minute.
Because you have to be clear, you have to listen, and you have to give it right back. Because the connection is quite wonky in all opinions. So I tell our friend Reba, I was like, hey, I need you to call Tyler. I am trying to get in contact with him. It's kind of an emergency. I need him pronto. Can you please tell him I'm trying to get in contact with him? And she said, yeah, not a problem. And I was like, thank you so much. And I ended the phone call. But then you can digress, because the next 2 minutes is you calling back to me.
Yeah, so I got Reba called me, and she's like, hey, what's going on? And I was like, nothing. What's up? I literally have been in town for a few hours. And she's like, what do you mean? Doesn't say anything about Gage yet. It's an emergency. Call Gage. No. She's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, I've been on the road from Texas for 24 hours. I got in at 10 a.m. I went into the office at 11. I've been working. It's now 3 o'clock, and I'm going home to lay on my ass and not do anything for 2 days. She goes, okay, well, Gage was calling with an emergency. I was like, is everything okay? She goes, don't know. What? It's like somebody hurt? Is he in the hospital? No, he seemed fine. What? Okay, well, how did you talk to Gage? He's out of cell coverage. Well, he called with a sat phone. He said he's been calling you all day. And I went, oh, no.
Was he from China by chance?
Try Tortugas China, same thing.
I said, I got to unblock a number and make a call. And she goes, yeah, just stay on the line for a while and it'll connect. Okay, bye. Hangs up. Doesn't tell me that it's going to cost a fortune, that I need to wait. They'll call you back. So I call the number and nothing happens. I'm a block from my house, so I pull back on the road. I drive west way home, and as I'm pulling the driveway, the phone rings again. And I was like, hello? Hello? Reba said stay on the line, so I'm just waiting, and I just hear Gage go, Tyler, can you hear me? I was like, yeah, I can hear you. What's up? It's quiet. I'm like, I start to talk again. He goes, don't say anything. Listen. I was like, okay. There's a delay in the connection. You tell me kind of that whole thing. And then you go into, we have an issue. I really need you to go get these parts for me. Yada, yada, yada. And I was like, yeah, okay, what do you need? It's not like I haven't drove from Dallas to Key Largo in the last 24 hours. What do you need?
He was my only person to call.
And then he goes, I'm going to hand the phone to Tom, and Tom's going to tell you what to do. And Tom goes, Tyler, listen up. Do not interrupt. There is a delay. If you grab a pen and paper, and when you're ready to start, tell me, and I will begin. When I am done, you can ask questions. Do not interrupt. And I was like, okay, asshole who made people stir the toilet. What was the intern prank he used to do?
Oh, he used to stir this. He used to tell people this is an inside scoop of Tom. So,
I heard this.
So Tom used to mess with the new interns, and that's another topic of discussion of where we started in the industry and stuff like that. So he used to mess with the interns, and he used to say that the dive shop that we were working at is they were trying to be financially responsible at the time, and they couldn't get the porta potties to be pumped out. So they had the interns go in with a stick and churn the porta potties.
But full hazmat gear.
Yeah, full hazmat gear, respirator, the whole 9 yards. Still with chacos or flip-flops on. They're still in the keys by all means. You don't put boots on. But yeah,
you're a dive instructor.
You're a dive instructor.
You get that part.
Yeah, you're in the diving industry.
But in my head, when he first talks that way, I'm like, okay, But then he starts listing through what he needs. He's like, oh, you guys are in a spot. Yeah. So he's like, I need you to go to this location. It's located at this address. Pick up these parts. You will ask for this person in sales. If he doesn't know what you're talking to, you will talk to this person. We'll have a back office. Here's the phone number. You will take it to this address. You will do this. I need you to do... he just started listing out all these stuff.
Methodical.
And then he got really quiet, and he goes, what did you miss? I said, can I read it back to you? He goes, go. And I read it all back to him, and he corrected things. So, I did a read back. He corrected where their issues were. Then I was like, what parts do you need? He goes, it should be set for you, but if they don't have this, this, and this, call the SAT phone. And we had this, it was a very weird back and forth because it was the most logical conversation I've ever had, where it's you say something, I say copy. Yeah. Then I can address you. And so if he has to talk for 5 minutes, you just sit there and listen and write as fast as you can. And I can't write that fast. Dyslexic, typing on an iPhone, not my greatest strong suit. I was like, okay, so I got most of that. Here's what I'm missing. And then, go through it. So the next morning at 6 a.m., I got on the road and I hit Fort Lauderdale by 8 o'clock, 8:05. Turns out I was the 12th person in line at this marine part dealership when they opened it there. The guy I was supposed to first ask, he looks at me and goes, don't know what you're talking about. Straight up, don't know what you're talking about. I was like, okay, well, I forget the other guy's name. He said, if you don't know what I'm talking about, grab this guy. And literally somebody else goes, dude, it's the parts for the Coral Reef too. You know what he's talking about. And he goes, no. And I walked back in the office. I was like, hey, I'm Tyler. I'm picking up parts for the Coral Reef too. And the guy looks at me and goes, oh, yeah, just ask the guy up front at sales. And he goes, he told me to come talk to you. And he goes, he just doesn't want to fucking deal with it. And so he gets up, grabs the parts, brings them down. He goes, all right, so you've been on the boat before. You know what the issues are. And I went, oh, no, dude, I was on the boat once in dry dock, and I have no engineering background. He goes, well, here it is. Drove that stuff down to Key West and got to the Yankee Freedom, and they had no clue what I was talking about. I almost thought I spent 6 hours wasting my day.
So you drove up to Fort Lauderdale, picked up all the parts, then
Went
moved
to
down
Key
to
West and then back to Key Largo in a
Friendship.
day.
Friendship, love. He got paid well.
I got paid.
He got paid.
I did get paid.
I'm sure I owed a favor somewhere down the road, but yeah.
There's a favor
There's
attached.
still a favor for sure.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way: if I wasn't on the road the day before, that's just good money. But because I was on the road for 2 days straight before that, it was miserable. So
And it comes down to you're the only person I could have called at that time who I would
flexible schedule, baby.
Flexible schedule,
There
and
you
I
go.
know without a shadow of a doubt that we could have gotten it done.
Yep.
Well, and
no
also
offense to us.
Eric owes you so many favors. If I had looked at my boss and said I need a day off, he'd be like, "No." I'd be like, "It's for Gage." Oh, of course.
Yeah, 100%. I don't even no questions asked.
But no, I'm glad that all it got solved, worked out. The parts got to you. So
Yeah, the boat is running better now than it ever was. And I had time while we were there to fix other issues. Just like poor water pressure in places, and just found out there was like things that just need to be cleaned out, fixed. We also, the entire time down, so we've had our autopilot has been broken. So anytime we're driving, it's all hand steering, which is just constant. From Miami to the Dry Tortugas is 22 hours straight. So you can imagine, granted there was 2 captains at the time, myself and Tom, taking 3.5 hour shifts back and forth. And a couple of times where we would anchor, we had to do some checkout dives and some things for the dive team and getting them ready and getting them comfortable in the water that we're going to be in, but still being awake, conscious, and ready to go at a moment's notice. Hand steering for that long is not fun, to be honest. It's just constant paying attention, especially when you're fighting yourself at 3 o'clock in the morning. And
I mean, imagine a road trip at 3 a.m. without cruise control, stick shift too.
And especially, it's like you can't pull over, you can't go to the bathroom, you can't walk around. You have to stay at that wheel. Maybe you have someone who's competent enough or knows you need to stay on that 85-degree heading. I'm literally going to go hit the head real quick. I'm going to go pour myself a cup of coffee. You stay on there. You holler or you hit the horn
If you
there's
see
any issues. Anything, you tell me. Because what happens is the other captain who is down is getting their rest, so they are ready to go when they switch shifts. So it's not a fun time, to be honest. It's just constant because you're fighting the boat. If there's any current or anything, it's just moving the wheel back and forth, which, granted, it was a great experience to learn how to drive a vessel of that size and that capacity, all via hand. And I'm thankful for that experience nonetheless. One of the things I did is we had a lot of downtime in which there was a lot of time when we would go, I would get the boat up, get the anchor up, go drive to the destination, go moor, or anchor in the spot that is necessary. And the rest of the professionals on board would start doing their job, and all I am supposed to do is just watch that anchor line and make sure everything else, the facilities are good. So there was time in which where I could go down, put on the overalls, go through the wiring, figure out the problems with the autopilot.
If you guys knew, Gage, put on the overalls means a lot. That's just another Pokemon reference for fun. Ash Ketchum turning his hat backwards. That's his game time play. You know what I'm talking about?
That's why I smiled. I was happy to hear it.
I want people to know that.
We had a girl on board. Her name was Alexandra, and she said every time she saw me in overalls is when things got fixed. She was like, "No, you put no short shorts while you're doing stuff. You put on the overalls and you go do it right." And I was like, "Yeah, you make sense."
Yeah, you have burns to prove.
Yeah, I
that
got
overalls are
second-degree
worth it.
burns while I was sitting in the engine room for the 9+ hours working on the water pump
Without overalls.
because,
Well, when the boat rocks, you fall into an engine that's hot.
Yeah, literally searing my leg all the way
God.
down. Yeah,
Nice, dude.
Yeah, it was a good time. And so when the overalls go on, the business gets done. So I was
We
going.
need a koozie.
Yeah.
That says that. When the overalls go on,
the business gets
Is
done.
that the first shirt?
Yeah.
First shirt?
Yeah.
All right.
So I had time in which it happened over the course of a couple of days because things happen. You get pulled to the aft deck, and you have to handle divers coming in the water. There's issues that persist, and random mechanical stuff that just the toilet won't flush. Go fix it. Or like, hey, this is kind of being weird. And then one of the different aspects when it comes to the chief engineering title is I have a lot of my repertoire and knowledge. On top of that is in the dive industry. Of like, my tank is being wonky. What's going on? Oh, it's like, oh, the stem is rusted through, or the seat's just gone to hell. These things haven't gotten service, so I'm just cranking tanks open, draining them real quick, rebuilding valves on the fly, getting them back up and running so Chrissy, for example, can get back and doing what she's there for.
I'm eternally grateful to this man. I should just say that because he taught me a lot on this trip.
Yeah.
And just in that aspect of always being on the fly, of just you don't. And in that aspect, there's generally not that much time where I can focus on something because something generally always happens where I get pulled away. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hey, this is broken, or do you have any input? Or I really need a second thought when it comes to this stuff, especially in the dive industry. And especially with the way I'm now coming away from the recreational basis and more truly by the books, which I don't think is a bad thing by any means. I actually appreciate it because, for example, we're having the opportunity to go do a deeper dive. And I was like, no, we can't do that because on a logical aspect, that person's not certified to do this. And being able to say that, and there's no like, well, technically by recreational standards.
Nope. You have insurance to deal with.
Exactly.
You have background in how dangerous it is.
Yeah.
You've had the dangers happen to you.
Yeah.
You can say no.
I've had issues happen, especially in deep water and stuff like that, where it's now outside of recreational, which is truth be told, more of the cowboy aspect of the dive industry, where you can kind of play it by the fly, and as long as everybody comes out unscathed, you did a good job. But it's nice to be on the logical aspect of the industry now, where it is truly by the book. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. And if something happened, would you be confident telling your decision to a lawyer? And just if you're not confident in that decision, then you shouldn't be doing it, because you have lives in your hand. Things can happen, and you always need to have that as your back.
I was told once, first imagine yourself explaining it to their mother, and then explaining it to the mother's lawyer. And if you can't do both, don't do it. And why did they say mother first? Because you probably don't need to have a conversation with the lawyer for after.
Yeah. So it's going back to the aspect of I'm just getting thrown into everything, which, truth be told, is where I flourish. My bread and butter is fixing things, getting to know people. I'm a very personable person. Truth be told, I love getting to people who know all backgrounds, and I truly enjoy teaching knowledge that is kind of just necessary to know, because I think the basics of knowing how things work in that aspect, especially when it comes to life support systems, is truth be told, is really imperative to knowing how it works. Because when you're at 3 or 4 atmospheres down below, having the mental projection in your head of like, in diving, this is how my tank is flowing. This is how my first stage, which is taking the pressure of 3,000 psi, taking it down to breathing operation, from this is what my gauge is reading, this is how my inflator is working on that aspect. And that, truth be told, on multiple times where that has helped me, because I'm 3 or 4 atmospheres down below and I'm having issues with my BCD. And just like, okay, think this methodically. This is the problem. Mm-hmm. There's a BCD that I first wore when I got in the industry, which would constantly, there was a flap on the going from the LPI, the low pressure inflator, up to the gasket that connected to the BCD. What would happen is if you inflated it in a certain way, the flap would fold in on itself and it wouldn't function. It would just dump the entire thing, or it would power inflate it out of nowhere. So you had to be constant. You had to be either, like, I would fill up my BC and also have my fingers at the ready to pop the quick disconnect from my LPI.
And now we use good gear.
Yes. But when I started, I didn't have the opportunity or have very well serviced gear or knew how to took care of the things, and that progressed at a time. And truth be told, I really enjoy learning from the basics, because if you learn from the bouginess all the way up top, it's hard to trickle back down. If you start bare bone and work your way up, you learn across the aspect instead of just this is what I do now, and it's hard for me to go step back down. If you don't know the basics, you're having issues with the advancements. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that, because like I was in the industry for a year before I really these are huge gaps in my knowledge. Just because my company doesn't make me do it doesn't mean I don't need to know how to do it. That's why I went and got the VIP course and started doing different kind of divings with Luke, like side mount and stuff. I still don't know how to service a regulator 100% on my own, but I've actually peeked inside of them more than once because, Corey's making me look in there and show me actually what's wrong with it. He's like, if you're going to make me open this up, I'm going to teach you what's wrong. No! Fuck.
What happened?
It said goodbye. I bet you the batteries died on
Where'd
it.
we go?
Everyone talk really loud!
Okay, Okay, I gotta take a poop.
Oh, that's good.
The camera's still on, Gage. Just because this died doesn't mean that died.
So usually I just try to intro these things and not outro, but sorry for the abrupt end to that conversation. We got a little extra audio there at the end with the GoPro, so I included some of that. But the batteries on our podcasting rig died. Again, little new to this, still learning a couple things. Sorry about that. We've got a power supply on its way, so this shouldn't be a problem in the future. But we actually decided, instead of powering it back up and starting another conversation that we'd gone on quite a while, that we're actually going to split this up into two conversations, as I really wanted to dive into not just Gage's role aboard the vessel as the engineer and first officer or first mate, but I really wanted to dive into Chrissy's role as the dive safety officer and give y'all a little different perspective of what it is like working on a research vessel. And, not necessarily as a scientist, but as somebody who's in the water that's making sure everybody's staying safe, and dealing with her own set of, problems to deal with out there at sea. So check out that episode. We'll have that up in a few days for you. Until then, I'll catch you on the next one.